Hello, everybody. Happy Monday, July 20th. We have another special appearance by Luca. Luca Pose, Dwyer. He's sleeping. This is usually his nap time because he gets FOODIES shortly around 5 o'clock. So he's resting before his big meal. So great to see you all. Today we will be, let me back up and introduce myself. I do this every time. My name is Shelby Dwyer. I'm a counselor at University Health and Counseling Services, and this is Yoga for Mental Wellness. For today's practice, you'll want a blanket, potentially 2 yoga blocks or a stack of books if you've got them. Textbooks can be sometimes pretty thick, so you could use 1 or 2 of those. And then potentially a yoga bolster or a pillow from your bed or a chair cushion, whatever works. And today's practice might be a little intense for the back. So if you have any back sensitivities or injuries, I'll do my best to offer variations throughout the practice, but make sure that you're really listening to your body. You know your body best. You are the expert of your body, and nothing should feel painful or sharp, and nothing should be going numb or any pinched nerves or anything like that. So really do your best to be mindful throughout the practice and check in with your body and see how you're feeling, not only emotionally, but physically, and just take care of yourself through this practice. Cool. All right, so to start, I'll mess with my blanket later. Let me just turn on Do Not Disturb so we don't get all those little messages. Sorry about that. This is what happens when you're live. So if you want to grab one of your blocks or your books, and you can bring it to the lowest height behind you, and you'll rest it in between your ankles, and then come to sit down back over the block. And you might potentially want 2 blocks, 2 books. If you use a second block on the lowest height, it gives you a little bit more lift, and it also takes out some of the compression in your hips, as you're not necessarily kind of pressing more into the creases of your hips. I'm going to go with 1 block just because it feels a bit more comfortable for my body. But you can go ahead and kind of wiggle around, find what works for you, where you feel like your pelvis is pretty balanced over the block. You might take your toes, just make sure that they're all completely flat against the mat, not tops of your toes flat against the mat, top of your feet flat against the mat as well. And your knees will be together, thighs will be touching in front of you. Once you feel like your pelvis is really resting firm on your block, you'll want to ensure that your shoulders are stacked over your hips, ears stacked over shoulders over hips. You might even gently pull the shoulder blades together down your back, maybe just encourage a little bit of an opening across your chest. Today's practice will work to counteract all of that kind of sitting hunched over computer that you might be doing. And then wherever you are, go ahead and just settle in physically to your body. What I mean by that is just developing awareness that you are in your body in this moment. That you're not creating your to-do list for tomorrow or thinking about things that you might have forgotten to do today. Allow your jaw to be relaxed. Your tongue rests on that little ridge behind your upper front teeth. Maybe your eyes close or you keep a soft gaze. Remember to keep that long spine. Ears stacked over shoulders, shoulders stacked over hips. Ensure that your chin is parallel with the floor beneath you. That helps support the cervical spine, the back of your neck. Really just offering your body and your brain the chance to come into the present moment together. The shape is called Hero Pose, and you might notice that since we've been here for a few moments, you might experience a bit of a stretch across your ankles, maybe even a stretch across the top of your feet. There might even be a gentle pulling or stretching across the top of your thighs, your quads. I'll invite you now to turn to your breath, noticing where in your body are you breathing. Perhaps it feels more comfortable to breathe in and out through your nose. Maybe it feels good to breathe in through the nose and then sigh out the mouth. You might notice you're breathing more with your belly or maybe more with your chest. Really allow your body to be soft yet strong. Continuing with that long spine, straight posture. Maybe breathing a bit more deeply into your belly. Maybe you bring a hand to your belly to sort of encourage the breath to move toward that hand. Full deep breath in through the nose. Allow the breath to flow down deep into your belly. Exhale, belly button gently pulls back toward your spine. Maybe sighing out the mouth. Inhale, big breath in. Exhale. Again, big full breath. And exhale. Again, full deep breath in. And exhale. Slowly allow yourself to breathe at your own pace in a way that feels most comfortable for you. And in these few moments before we begin to move a bit more in our practice, maybe check in with yourself and see if there's something that you might need today. Maybe something that you need to hear desperately from someone else. Something like, you're okay, you're doing a great job, you're doing the best you can. This too shall pass. I'm here for you. Whatever it might be. Okay. Luca's dreaming. And see if you can hold that phrase or a mantra or quote or statement, whatever it might be. See if you can hold it maybe in your heart for a moment. Really allow yourself to hear it, to believe it. And then you may choose to continue to hold it in your heart or keep it in mind as we move through this practice. Or maybe you sort of bookmark it for once you're done with this movement in this class. As you feel ready, slowly begin to blink the eyes open. Allow your body to move forward so that you can lift your hips up off the block and return down, maybe coming into a cross-legged or seated position for a moment. Extend your legs in front of you, bringing them into a wide diamond shape. So your knees will wing out to the side. Your feet, the soles of your feet will be together. And you can choose to stay upright here, maybe pressing your hands into the mat alongside your hips, really keeping that long spine going. You could also begin to walk the spine forward, maybe bringing your blocks or books. Blocks is a funny word. You should try saying it right now. You might bring them with you and maybe begin to walk the blocks out, or books, and resting your hands on them, keeping the arms long. You could potentially bring your blocks and stack them in between your legs for a rest for your chin if you wanted to round the spine forward. Alternatively, you could also reach your hands for your ankles, allow the elbows to kind of nestle into behind the backs of your knees, or maybe they reach your thighs. It kind of depends on how you are anatomically. Maybe you reach your hands for the soles of your feet, and then you might round your spine forward. I like to kind of shimmy my torso out of my hips, so I really press my hips down and then lengthen and kind of wiggle and grow my spine out of my hips, and then I begin to round forward. And for me, that just ensures that I get a bit more length across my spine. The shape is butterfly pose. And so it's similar to what you might have done in a vinyasa class when you do butterfly in that type of a class, but you'll notice we've got the knees wider apart. The feet are also further away from the hips. This allows us to get a bit more into the outer muscles of the legs and the outer connective tissues in the legs, rather than if we were to bring our heels closer to our hips, that targets more of the groin and the inner leg line. So here, folding forward, if you notice that your knees are far away from the earth, you can always bring your blocks or books to rest underneath the knees for some support. Wherever you are, straight spine or rounding forward, see if you can ensure that there's enough space in your midsection to fully breathe, just as deeply as you did when we were in Hero's Pose at the start of this class. So for those of you who have done these little online live streams with me before, you'll know that the type of yoga I like to offer students is yin yoga, which is based in traditional Chinese medicine. And the names of the poses are named after animals. I have tried to do the research. I don't necessarily know where that came from, but I think it's a beautiful gesture and very harmonious with nature, which traditional Chinese medicine is I believe to be harmonious with as well, based on the 5 elements and things like that. And in yin yoga, just as we're doing now, we come into a pose and we find our edge in that pose. So edge meaning the sensation is not too intense, but it's also not too gentle. So right now, with myself folding forward in this butterfly shape, I feel some intensity, maybe a bit of pressure in my hips, maybe a pulling across the outer leg line. I even feel maybe just like almost like an opening across the soles of my feet, because I'm using my hands to sort of open my feet like a book. But that sensation that I'm experiencing in my lower body, maybe also I should say as I'm rounding my spine forward, maybe feeling the elongation of my spine, it's about a 4 or 5 out of 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 would be like, I need to get out of the shape. Oh my gosh, I'm done. It's too much. And 1 is, oh, I can just totally go to sleep here. It's so relaxing. So again, not too intense, not too gentle. One of my teachers calls it like the Goldilocks principle. And so once we find that edge, that 4 or 5 out of 10, we hold in relative stillness for a period of time. And this can be anywhere from 3 minutes to 8 minutes. You'll notice that occasionally I'll look at my Fitbit and I do not get notifications on it, so I'm literally only checking the time. I'll let you in on a secret. The reason that I don't get notifications on it is because I have no idea how to do it. I have no idea how to connect it. So I'm just a super tech smart millennial, apparently. Keep breathing really deeply, even as you fold forward. You've been here for a few minutes, so you might even notice that you could begin to melt your torso down, maybe a little bit closer to the floor. Maybe you decide to gently ease out of the shape a little bit or experiment with that long spine, straight spine. If you've had a straight spine, you might experiment with rounding a little bit forward. Any back issues, though, you'll want to stay in that long, straight spine, pressing the knees, the outer knees into the floor. We won't be here for too much longer. Take a few really long, deep breaths. Again, maybe allowing the breath to originate at the base of your belly. Exhaling fully, maybe sighing it out if that feels good. Take a long, deep breath in here. Exhale, sigh it out. Use your arms to walk your torso back upright if you were rounded forward. And then wherever you are, bring your hands to the outside of your knees. Use your arms to pull your knees together for a moment. Extend the legs long in front of you. Maybe windshield wiper, swish the legs back and forth. You might even bend your knees, bring your hands behind you, take the feet about the width of your mat, and then again, just kind of windshield wiper the legs back and forth. This type of swishing of your legs gets more into the hip joints. I don't know why it makes me actually like slide forward, so you might have to slide your bum backwards a little bit as you're doing this. And then whenever you feel complete, allowing yourself to return back to neutral. And then come back into that hero's pose for a moment, except you won't need your block. Hi, Luca. You won't need your block. But you'll rest. This is going to sound a little tricky. I'm going to kind of turn myself so you can see. I'm going to rest my right foot into the arch of my left foot and then slowly begin to sit my hips back. Be very gentle and slow because what we're doing is we're actually going to massage the arch of our left foot with the top bony part of our right foot. So if you get it right, you hit this like kind of tender sweet spot that can be a little tough to sort of just like sit and put all your pressure on. So play around with really just relaxing both feet. You might begin to sort of start initially a bit more forward. Maybe your hips aren't resting on your heels, but kind of find where you feel some pressure in the, again, in the arch of your left foot. You might play around with sort of moving your hips from side to side. Notice how that shifts the pressure in the left foot. If you're doing this correctly, it's not comfortable. But we don't necessarily want to feel pain. So no burning, no numbness. There shouldn't be any sharpness, but it's not comfortable. Short-term sacrifice, long-term gain, because I promise you it'll be so nice when you release this. And think about it. How often do we give our feet some love? I mean, maybe you do. I feel like I don't. I'm running, or I'm standing, or I'm walking around. Bless you. It's my husband sneezing. And so this is a way, albeit not a comfortable way, but this is a way to give your feet some love. If you find a spot that feels a little sticky, you can hold there. We won't be here for too much longer, less than a minute. Maybe you begin to really let your hips settle on your feet and apply a bit more pressure. Oh my goodness. Are you feeling this? I'm totally feeling this. Whew. All right, continue to breathe. I just noticed I wasn't breathing. I was holding my breath. Breathe into that sensation. All right, begin to walk yourself forward. Release your feet. Maybe pat out the tops of your feet for a moment. Sorry, neighbors below me. And then maybe for a moment, just sit back. If you need your block or a book in between your ankles, you can bring that there. But just notice, like, is there a difference between the sole of your right foot and the sole of your left foot? Maybe the sole of your left foot feels a little bit warmer. Maybe it feels like it's a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more open. All right, let's give that right foot some love. So begin to walk yourself forward. Nestle the top of your left foot into the arch of your right foot, and then slowly, slowly begin to sit your hips back. You might have to kind of wiggle around to sort of find that bony part of your right foot to kind of massage, into the arch of your left, bony part of your left foot to massage into the arch of your right foot. You might move the hips around a little bit, just kind of finding maybe some like little spots that feel a little bit sticky or tight. And this is similar to if you've ever used like a tennis ball or one of those fascia balls under your foot. You just kind of like roll your foot around and apply some pressure, whether you're standing or sitting. This is exactly what we're doing, except we're just not using any kind of tool. We're using our own body to massage into those connective tissues in our feet. You find a spot that feels a little sticky or tight, you could hold there. You can, potentially begin to fully sit your hips back on your heels. I'm going to continue to lean a little bit more forward because it's a little intense. Remember to breathe here, maybe even breathing into the sensation in your feet. I know you can't literally breathe into your feet, but could you imagine that the air, the oxygen, your breath could really flow to that space and alleviate some of that tension? So in this practice in yin yoga, and just as we're doing right now, we're actually not targeting the muscles in the body because we're coming into a shape, we're relaxing the muscles and we're holding for a period of time. And so we're actually targeting connective tissues in the body. So that's our ligaments, our fascia, our joints, these parts of our bodies that really support the muscles, support our overall bodies, but they don't necessarily get stressed in the way that we stress muscles when we lift weights, right? But by targeting the connective tissues through a yin yoga practice, through the types of stretches that we're going to be doing and have done throughout the practice already, we're lubricating all those connective tissues. We're keeping them healthy by applying stress on them, just as you would like a muscle, like if you were trying to, make your bicep bigger. Our body does actually need some stress in order to stay resilient. On that note, begin to walk your arms forward, maybe tap out the tops of your feet. Might feel good to also kind of roll the ankles out a little bit. It might be a little stiff. That stiffness comes potentially from you targeting the connective tissues in your body. So you might feel a little achy. It might feel tight. You might feel like your feet aged a little bit, but that's actually a sign you've targeted the connective tissues. Come onto your toes now. We'll just do a really quick little toe stretch. See if you can get all 10 toes on the mat. Sitting on your heels for a moment. You might just kind of rub your feet for a second. Good job, feet. All right, just to kind of counteract the shape that we're in. And then return to come down to sit on your bum. And you'll extend your left leg long out to the side. So if you're on your mat, you might face the long edge of your mat. And you'll want potentially your bolster nearby as well as your blocks or books. You'll bend your right knee so that your right heel is coming in toward your hip. And then just kind of settle in. You might have to kind of scoot. There's no pretty way to say this. You might have to kind of pull the flesh of your thighs and buttocks out to the side so that you can really sit on your sits bones. It helps you feel a little bit more anchored. But your left leg, your left foot is aiming toward the corner of one of your mat, excuse me. And now you could begin to just kind of lean your body, kind of arching your spine up and over your left leg. But it's a side bend here. You could also bring one or more of your books or blocks to the inside of your left leg. Maybe rest your elbow on the block or the book. Your head rests in your hands. You could keep your right arm alongside you, maybe resting on that right leg, or you could potentially let that right arm just kind of hang over your head. If you have the mobility, I don't think I do right now, but if you have the mobility, you could reach your left arm toward your left foot, maybe grabbing onto the left foot or the left toe, spinning your heart towards the ceiling a little bit, so opening while you're arching up and over. Maybe really kind of sinking into that lateral, this is called lateral dragonfly. You might again bring that right arm to hang over your head. But here in this shape, the goal is to really have like a long spine. We're pulling, imagine that we could sort of root our pelvis down to the earth, pull our spine long out of our pelvis and arch it up and over our left leg. So here in this shape, you might feel a stretch across the inner left leg line, maybe the inner left thigh or the groin. If it feels a little bit too much to have the knee straight, you can always bring your bolster underneath or even your block or a book underneath your left knee, because that'll actually alleviate some of the pulling on the back of the leg and relax the hamstring a bit more. But wherever you are, can you maybe breathe now, this time into the right side of your waist? Imagining that your inhales could flare your ribs out a little bit and your exhales could gently pull them back in. It's almost like if you've ever watched a jellyfish kind of float, how it sort of flares out and then comes back together. Almost breathe like a jellyfish moves. Make sure that you're not collapsing into your left hip. So really ensuring that, again, we're really growing the spine long out of the pelvis. The muscles in your legs are relaxed. Maybe your gaze is toward the front of your space, or maybe up towards the ceiling or over your right shoulder, wherever feels best for your neck. You've been here for a few minutes, so notice if anything needs to be adjusted, if perhaps you want to remove the props that you're using and maybe kind of begin to use more body weight, reaching your left hand toward your left foot, maybe reaching your right arm overhead to just kind of hang. Maybe you decide to come up a little bit more so that you're not melting over your left leg as much, but you've got a little bit more of a straight spine and working more on like a twist through the spine. And finding what works best for you here. We'll be here for about a minute. You might notice that the further down you kind of arch, the closer your left side body gets to your left leg, you might experience a stretch across. I believe it's your psoas, but of course right now because we're live, my brain is going blank. But there's this giant muscle that kind of wraps up and over the iliac crest, so up and over the hip. And it threads down like through the hip and connects with the thigh. And sometimes if you do these kind of side bends, you can really get into that sort of muscle. Take a long, full breath in. Exhale, let it go. Begin to walk your torso back upright. And then extend your legs long in front of you for a moment. Maybe bring your hands alongside you, press your hands into the floor. Maybe you let your hands just kind of rest gently in your lap. But just notice from right side to left side of your body what feels different. Maybe the left side of your body feels like it gained like an inch in length. Maybe it feels a bit more open. At your own pace, whenever you feel ready, we'll gently move toward lateral dragonfly on the other side. So bending your left leg, bringing the left heel in toward your hip, extending your right leg long towards one of the corners of your mat. If you're facing the long edge of your mat like me. If it feels like it's a little too tight behind the back of your right knee, you can always bring, again, that bolster, pillow, book, block. I can't believe I got through all of that without stuttering. Underneath your knee for some support. And here, notice that one side might be different than the other. So as you begin to move in toward this lateral arching up and over your right leg, notice if perhaps it feels maybe a bit tighter, if you're not able to move as deeply as you did on the first side. It's totally normal. Our bodies are not symmetrical. They're asymmetrical. We also have dominant sides, right? Like I'm a righty. My right arm is stronger than my left arm. So it's okay if one side feels a bit different and you're not able to go as deeply. Wherever you are, again, we're really rooting that pelvis down into the earth, lengthening our spine long as we arch up and over our right leg. We spin the chest towards the ceiling, maybe keeping your left hand on your left thigh, maybe allowing the left arm to just kind of drape and hang over your head. Hi, you're so sleepy. Just woke Luca up. Good boy. Good boy, Luca. And I apologize, I didn't say this, but you could bring your block on the inside of your right knee to maybe prop your right elbow on. Wherever you are, ensure that you have enough space in your torso to really breathe deeply. Seeing if you can breathe into the belly, just as we did when we were in that hero's pose in the beginning of the class. Oh. Muscles in your legs are soft and relaxed. I just had to consciously release my foot because I was definitely holding it. Finding that 4 or 5 out of 10 for the level of sensation that you feel across the inner right leg line, maybe across the outside of your left ribs. Maybe really directing your breath to the left side of your waist. So imagining that jellyfish breathing in your ribs. You've been here for a few minutes, so notice if anything needs to be adjusted, if perhaps you want to move more deeply into the shape, or maybe coming up just a little bit more, twisting the spine instead towards the left side of your space. Finding what works best for you. No one way is better than the other. Contrary to what I think I thought when I first started practicing asana, the physical practice of yoga, deeper does not mean better. More flexible does not mean better, right? Everybody is different. We all have varying levels of mobility and accessibility and flexibility. Our bodies, our bones are all so different. And what I really love about yin yoga is that it really allows us to be the expert of our practice. We find on that scale of 1 to 10 what feels like a 4 or 5 to us, and then we hold there in relative stillness. But we dictate our experience. It's pretty cool. I love yin yoga, if you couldn't tell. We'll be here for less than a minute, so keep breathing deeply into the left side of your ribs. Notice if you arch a little bit deeper, maybe you get into that muscle that drapes over. I think it's definitely your psoas. Someone must know on this call right now. Actually, I could totally look. I have an anatomy book right here. Take a long, deep breath in here. Exhale, let it go. Walk your torso back upright. Oh, man. Bring the soles of your feet together for a moment. Bring the heels close to your hips. Hold your ankles. And then, oh, something popped in my hip. Flutter your knees up and down, kind of like a butterfly. You might kind of go opposite. Move your knees oppositely. Can that be a word? Maybe just kind of bouncing the knees up and down just to get into the hip a little bit too and really release any tension in the legs. Moving as fast as you want or as slow as you want. Maybe you kind of wiggle yourself from side to side. And then as you're ready, you'll find your way onto your belly. And hi, big boy. Oh, he's stretching the feetsies. And once you're on your belly, oops, you'll try to knock over a giant crystal. You'll bring your forearms to parallel, fingers spread wide, and you'll play around with potentially walking your elbows forward. Notice how that decreases the compression in your spine. If I bring my elbows closer to underneath my shoulders, I'm back bending quite a bit more. You can see there's a much deeper arch in my spine than if I were here. So find what works for you. Again, elbows and wrists are parallel to one another. We don't want to have our elbows winged out to the side. We want them parallel with the edges, our forearms parallel with the edges of our mat. The wider your feet are behind you, that'll also decrease the compression in the low spine. If you bring your feet closer together, that's going to really tighten everything up and apply more pressure in the low spine. So again, find what works for you. Press your hips into the mat. You can imagine that you could really root down those hip points into the earth. And then again, allow your spine to grow out of your hips. So there's a sensation of rooting in the pelvis, lengthening and growing the spine out of our pelvis. You might let your head drop, just kind of hang. Make sure that you're not sort of sinking into the shoulders, but you're pressing through the arms. Maybe gently hugging the shoulder blades together behind you. You can alternate between the head being dropped and maybe gaze forward toward your fingertips so that your chin is slightly tucked toward your chest, but there's a long spine. Your back of your head, back of your neck, isn't like crunched like this. So keeping that space in the back of our spine, back of our neck. We won't be here for too long. This is Sphynx Pose. Really let the muscles in your legs relax, your glutes relax. You've been here for a couple minutes, so perhaps you might want to adjust the position of your elbows from your shoulders, maybe walking them out, walking the arms out a little bit further to alleviate some pressure, or maybe even walking them back more so that the elbows are under the shoulders. Take a long, full breath in here. Exhale, gently begin to melt your torso down toward your mat. Stack your hands one on top of the other. Maybe rest your head to one side, resting your cheek onto the back of your hands. You might shimmy your hips from side to side just to really release the low spine. Maybe bend the legs, windshield wiper the feet back and forth. And then, you okay? I hope you heard that. It was so cute. It was a little sigh from Luca. And then allow yourself to just melt and be heavy and still on your mat for a moment. As you feel ready, whenever that may be, you'll walk your hands out so that they're wider than your mat. And you'll angle your middle fingers, sort of like as if you were, I'm trying to think, if you had your hands on your mat, your middle fingers would line up with the corners of your mat. But since your arms are going to be wider than your mat, you'll just kind of have to imagine that you've got corners. And then slowly begin to straighten through the arms. This is seal pose. You might begin to walk your arms back, again, keeping the arms long. Legs behind you, potentially keeping them wide, because again, the closer you bring them together, the more compression there is in the low back. But right now we haven't warmed up the spine enough to have them super close together, so I would recommend keeping them far apart. Press through your hands, press through your arms. See if you can relax the muscles in your arms and just really let the bones hold you up here. Imagine that you could press your pelvis down and forward in your mat. So again, we're rooting through the pelvis, growing our spine out of the pelvis. Allow the the shoulders to drop away from the ears. Keep your head in line with the rest of your spine, so that might mean gaze is slightly forward. We won't be here for too long, but breathe deeply into your belly. Notice how breathing into the belly can almost massage out your spine and the low back. Full deep breaths here. One more big full breath in. Exhale, slowly bend the elbows, let your torso melt back towards the mat. Stack your hands one on top of the other, turn your head to the opposite cheek. And again, maybe windshield wiper the legs back and forth. You might even, if you'd like, alternatively, begin to sit your hips back toward your heels, knees maybe the width of your mat, coming into a child's pose, just to kind of massage and support the low back. Arms can rest long on the mat in front of you, forehead rests on the ground, maybe forehead rests on a block if you're taking that child's pose. Take a few deep cleansing breaths here, letting the breath really massage your spine. You might even imagine that your inhale is like a waterfall trickling over your spine. Washing away any tension. If you're lying on your belly, begin to make your way up to this child's pose shape. And you can be there for a moment if you'd like. And if you're already in child's pose, you can stay as you are. And you can listen for a moment. We'll be moving into camel pose. And I don't normally teach with like a peak pose, but for those of you familiar with yoga, that's kind of what we're doing today. So we warmed up our spine by doing several different shapes. We opened up through our chest, through seal, through Sphynx. We moved our spine in different ways with that lateral dragonfly, with our forward, I was going to say forward bending, but we didn't get to that. With our butterfly shape where we folded forward, there we go. And so with camel pose, it's a pretty deep back bend. And so I'm going to, again, per usual, invite you to be the expert of your body. Trust that you know what's best for you. And do not go deeply if it's painful, if there's any pinching. Again, deeper is not better. So begin to work your way upright. You might want a blanket on your mat just to give yourself, your knees, some extra cushion. And you'll have it so that your ankles are potentially, hi, yes, hello, big boy. So that your ankles are off of the blanket. And hopefully you can see me. I'll have to move over a little bit. But you'll begin to stand up on your shins. Feet, tops of your feet will be on the mat. And first, what I like to do is bring my hands to my back and just kind of like find, you know, those little dimples that you have on your back? See if you can almost put your thumbs in that space and really pull your pelvis down so that it's really rooted down, and then begin to lengthen your spine up. Nice boy. Good boy. It's important here that the shoulders right now are stacked over the hips. Hips are stacked over the knees. So even as we begin to arch back, we're going to keep our hips stacked over our knees. You might begin to now bring the your hands, the palm of your hands to your low back. Fingertips kind of graze your bum. And then begin to pull the elbows together. Roll the shoulders back. Pull the shoulder blades together. So coming into that like heart opener that we were doing when we were in Lateral Dragonfly, we were twisting and opening our heart towards the ceiling. Slowly start to push the hips forward. At the same time, you're lifting your spine up out of your pelvis, so rooting the pelvis, lengthening the spine. Slowly starting to push the heart up towards the ceiling. And this may be where you stay. Alternatively, you could begin to walk your hands down your thighs. The full expression of this pose, I don't know if I'll be able to do it, would be my hands would come to my heels or maybe my ankles. Yeah, I'm a little too far forward. I'm going to stay upright. Again, keeping the hips over the knees. Shoulder blades together to support the heart. Pressing the tops of your feet into the floor. Pulling your core in to protect the low back. Breathe deeply here. Allow the head to maybe drop back. Take a big breath in. Gently come back upright. Sit your hips back toward your heels for a moment. Check in with your low back. See how you're feeling. I know there's a bit of compression in the low back when we do that shape, when we're in Camel Pose, so just check in there. Maybe in this moment, direct your breath there to sort of massage out the tension. If you'd like, we'll take Camel one more time, so coming to stand up on the shins. Again, preparing yourself well. Hips over your knees. Again, bringing your hands, either the palms to your low back, maybe the thumbs. Begin to grow your spine long out of your pelvis. Pull the shoulder blades together, your elbows together behind you. Slowly beginning to push your heart up towards the ceiling as you begin to melt backwards. Maybe head gently releases. Pelvis pushes forward. Whenever you're ready, gently releasing. Whew. I don't know if y'all are sweaty. I mean, I know I'm wearing sweatpants, but like, ooh, I don't have the air on either and it's warm. Go ahead and move your blanket off to the side. Come to lie down on your mat. When you're there, give yourself a squeeze. Pull your knees in toward your chest. Maybe rock from side to side just to massage out the low back. Whenever you feel ready, keeping the knees bent, lower your feet down to the ground. Bring your left ankle to rest above your right knee. And then potentially thread your arms through so that you can reach around to grab your right thigh, coming into a figure 4 shape. I like to press my left elbow into my left thigh just to open the thigh up a little bit more. That gets a little bit more into the groin and inner leg line. You could arch your spine a little bit, push your legs forward, and that'll increase the sensation in your hips as well here. Or excuse me, potentially in the hips as well as the back of your left thigh. Breathe deeply here. Lengthen your legs towards the ceiling for a moment. And then switch sides, bringing your right ankle just above your left knee, threading your arms through to reach around your left thigh. I like, again, to press my right elbow into my right thigh just to open it out a little bit more. Maybe arching into your spine a little bit, pushing the legs forward just to deepen the sensation in the outer right hip, outer right thigh, back of your right thigh. Breathing deeply into your belly. One more full breath in here. Slowly lower your legs. Extend them long on your mat. Maybe extend your arms long alongside you or rest your hands on your belly. You might even bring your arms to a goalpost shape on either side of your head just to continue kind of that opening across your chest. And allow yourself to be really heavy. We won't be here for too long. Maybe close your eyes if it feels safe to do so. Let your breathing return to normal. Let every connective tissue and fascia, muscle, your bones, everything begin to settle. Offering yourself a brief moment of relaxation, a rare moment of doing nothing. Allowing your whole being to absorb the practice that you've just engaged in. Take a long, full breath in here and sigh it out. Slowly begin to shift so that you can hug your knees back into your chest for a moment. Give yourself a squeeze. Gently begin to roll over to one side, pausing on your side for a moment. As you feel ready, gently using your arms to push yourself upright, coming into a seated position. Perhaps eyes stay closed or with a soft gaze. Again, our spine is growing long out of our pelvis, which is rooted against our mat. Shoulders gently pull back together so that you can really shine your heart forward. Chin parallel to the earth beneath you. Bring your left hand to rest over your heart, fingers spread wide. Right hand rests over your left. Apply a gentle pressure here. Take a long, big breath in. And sigh it out. Second one, full breath in. Exhale. Last one, make it count. Big breath in. Exhale, let it go. Slowly lower your hands to your knees. Gently begin to blink open your eyes and come back to the space. Thank you so much for practicing today. I hope that this was a useful practice for you and a good reminder to pull the shoulders back and open up through the heart every once in a while we're hunched over our computers. I will be here, hopefully you will be too, next week. We'll be streaming live every Monday except for holidays or if I'm unexpectedly out from 4 to 5 p.m. Again, this is in collaboration with University Health and Counseling Services and Center for Spirituality, Dialogue, and Service. I hope everyone has a really wonderful rest of your day, a really great rest of your week. Stay hydrated, drink lots of water, wash your hands, wear a mask, take care of yourself, do good work, do anti-racism work, and look at Luca. Is this not the cutest thing you've ever seen? All right, see y'all next week. Take good care. Bye.